Okay, so welcome to today's Arborist Call. Today's the 25th of July, and I'm Pili, the engineering manager at the Zcash Foundation hosting. So this is the agenda for today's meeting. First of all, we'll hear an update on the NU6 activation process.
Pili, just interject. You're not sharing your screen, so we're not seeing the agenda.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was sharing. Okay, there we go. Yeah. There's the agenda. Cool. So first of all, we'll be hearing an update on NU6 activation on testnet. Then we'll have some updates from the foundation on the NU6, on the Zebra. And then we will have some updates from the ECC's core development team as well. Next, after that, we'll have some updates on research and implementation work. And then we can open the floor to participants to make any announcements that may be of interest to the community. Then if there's any time left over, we can cover any other discussion topics that anyone might have. So what is the Arborist Call?
If I can register a time slot there, I don't know if during ZSA or afterwards we're going to be discussing grants and forum posts and the aftermath of that.
I think that we'll slot it at the open discussion. I think we will have time for that. So is that okay, John? Cool. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. So the Arborist Call is a bi-weekly call where Zcash protocol contributors meet up to discuss upgrade timelines and process, protocol research and development efforts, design and implementation of new protocol features, and we can identify blockers and unresolved issues. And the purpose of this call is to try to make Zcash protocol development accessible to interested parties and to provide more transparency to everyone. So anyone can register to attend. You can go to zcasharborist.org, and if you want to become more involved and present, you can email us at arboristcall@zfm.org and request a presentation slot. Outside of the Arborist Call, you can participate in the Zcash community in a number of ways. You can apply to one of the grant programs, and you can take part in community discussions, either in the Zcash R&D Discord or in the Zcash community forum. And there are clickable links for all of these at zcasharborist.org. So with all that being said, we can move on to today's agenda and an update on NU6. I don't know who wants to get us started on that. Whether anyone from the ECC, maybe a SIP editor, or we can have updates on from the core development teams. No one? Well, I can give an update on. Oh, go on.
From the ECC side, we are implementing. So since both of the finalist proposals for development fund allocation after NU6 involve a funding stream based mechanism that feeds into an in-protocol lockbox. We're implementing the underlying lockbox functionality so that it will just be a configuration change effectively in order to implement whatever proposal is finally decided on. And so that's and I believe that folks at ZF in Zebra have made the same changes. So that's
there's another thing to do if we intend to include my draft slip about block balancing. That should be pretty straightforward, I think. It's really just a few lines, maybe one or two lines in the consensus code, and then a bunch of tests.
There, I mean, you might just check what mic you're using because you're muddy again.
Okay, yeah, I'm using the wrong mic.
Can't hear you now.
A lot of gremlins on this call today.
You'll have to put up with the muddy audio, I'm afraid, from me.
That's fine.
Okay.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, go on, Ariel.
Just to confirm, Zebra is in the same position as Zcash right now. We have a PR open that essentially implements everything except for a few parameters that still might change because the zips are in draft.
Any news on when we might have more clarity, when we might, I know there's the runoff poll, but I believe I haven't seen any results from that. So I guess once the runoff polls.
I'm hoping that on the Zcash side, that PR and another PR for the box balancing will be ready by the time of the outcome of the polls. So it'll just be a matter of selecting the relevant option and then merging it.
The options only affect configuration parameters in the PRs. So right now the focus with regard to the PRs is just making sure that the Zcash and ZebraD PRs implement the same thing, that they're not inconsistent with each other. And then as far as timing goes, I believe the runoff polls are all sort of roughly targeting Monday next week for there, because the Zepeditor meeting that we were going to finalize things in is Tuesday next week. Which would then mean that hopefully by later next week we're in a situation where both ZebraD and Zcash have agreement on on the implementations and what they've implemented, and we can then set the testnet activation and get that rolled out.
Strad is, from the Zepeditor's point of view, is that 8th of August date still realistic?
It's irrelevant to the zip editors. What matters there is the full node implementers. Like the zip editors will be from the zip editor's point of view. Once the once the runoffs are done and we have clarity from that in terms of which parameters get done, we ensure those parameters get into the relevant drafts. We assign the zip numbers, get those up as proposed, and with any remaining edits that need to happen, and that's there. The question is whether the full node implementers believe that, given that we won't have the finalized things to enable activation until Tuesday next week, whether there is enough time between then and August 8 to get the remaining implementation work done, go through their respective release processes, get them out to the people who are participating in testnet, and then get everyone upgraded to testnet in time for 8th of August. That seems a little tight.
Yep, that's how I would describe it as well.
Great.
So
sounds good.
What day of the week is 8th of August?
it's like a Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
It might set for the following Monday.
Yeah. Mostly just comes into how quickly the releases can get out after the code is done.
But there's enough
In
time.
Zebra,
There's enough time before Tuesday to have all of the tests working on reg test, and I wouldn't anticipate that the testnet is going to show up any problems. But obviously, that's the point of the testnet activation, to discover unanticipated stuff.
we were hoping to get a Zebra release out by the end of next week or very early the following week. So if the testnet activation is on Thursday the 8th, we're trying to get Zebra out the previous Friday or the previous Monday, but we'll see how everything goes. Alfredo had his hand up. I don't know if he still wants to say something.
Yeah, I was wondering if can we change the testnet activation? That's one question I have. And the other one is, so right now the CF into Zebra and the ECC into the Zcash has an open PR for the lockbox. So I was wondering if we should if the plans of the ECC is to merge that to main and then do the changes as needed, or to wait until we have everything before merging, or if that is even relevant.
I mean,
I had anticipated that we would wait until Tuesday before merging that, because there's not really much point in merging it while we don't know the relevant option.
I mean, the main thing here is it depends on how it's implemented in terms of configurability. I don't believe the funding streams in Zcash are like reg test configurable. Only the network upgrades are. So whatever we merge in is the thing that then reg test will be testing against.
Yeah.
Whereas we can and will merge the PR without a testnet activation height and just be testing locally against reg test. And then, so to Alfredo's point about can we change the test activation? Well, we don't change it. We just don't set it until we are right at the point of doing the actual releases. So we can target attempting to get things out for August 8, but what we should really just be doing is keeping an eye on each other and in terms of the getting our PRs in and getting our release process ready. And then once we're both at the point of having releases with the button ready to go, we can then set the activation heights, pull that in, and go ahead.
I think
and at that point confirm what's realistic to actually hit.
I think in Zcash we do have some tests that target testnet, so it's obviously a local in-process testnet.
We do, and in fact, it's only with respect to the testnet config that our Zcash tests test funding streams at all. Right now, there are no reg test funding streams configured. That's something we may want to change for this, but that's something.
Well, I mean, testing on that process local testnet, it's slower, but it works fine. So we might as well do that if that's how the
those tests aren't done using the RPC test framework. They're G tests,
exactly.
So they don't suffer some of the problems. They're doing things a different, faking up little bits and pieces in a different way.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on any side?
Yeah, Hannah.
So there was a question about can we change the activation height?
Right.
So yes, we can, up to the point that we release either Zcash or Zebra, whichever releases first.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Thank you. So yeah, I had another question that it was so for NUSIG, we have the logbox and we have the changes to get block subsidy output that we discussed. Do we have something else in regards to code changes?
Like I said, so have the zip editors decided, or have ECC and ZF decided whether the box balance zip is getting into NU6?
My belief is we had.
I just don't remember there being a formal decision about that. If there has been, then it should be assigned a zip number and
well, all the zip number assignments were going to happen on Tuesday.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it would be useful to know, because if that is getting in, then I can do I can work on the zip for the activation.
Well, what activation?
The deployment zip.
There's already a zip draft up for the deployment.
Oh, right.
And it includes the Coinbase's should balance zip.
Oh, yeah. It does. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that. But yeah, that answers my questions.
Can I ask a governance question on the lockbox?
Sure.
It seems like the way it's designed right now and is about to be launched is assigning the lockbox, and then the mechanism that the lockbox would operate under is something in the future that will happen through another zip. It puts a lot of concentrated stakes on the zip editing process, which is already, there's a lot at stake with zip editing, but now it's like pure money.
No, I don't think so. The zip editor process is ensuring that the zips that are being included into the Zcash spec are sound and have support and things from the community. But at the end of the day, it's what actually gets implemented into nodes and deployed that matters there. So
I
from
understand.
so the understanding that has been gained from the votes thus far in the community is that there's clear support for what's being figured out now is there's precise details, but there's clear support for a lockbox where the mechanism for disbursement will be done in some non-direct funding model at a later point. Now,
Yeah.
I agree that needs to be figured out, and the next step there is figuring out what are the technical limitations on what is possible to do securely in sort of different ways that could be done. And then with that being known, then there's the discussions that the community will have to have around the social side of that governance of the lockbox. And obviously all of those are sort of on independent timelines from other things, which is the kind of the point of the lockbox, is to decouple those discussions from NU6 activation at the halving.
So if I understand correctly, the argument here is, there's a zip process, but there's also in the end what actually becomes of Zebra and Zcash-D, and the equilibrium is removes a little bit of the stakes and on that.
Let me explain my understanding of how Zcash governance really works. ECC and ZApp. So in general, full node implementers are highly incentivized to follow the specs as produced by the zip process, because it's because that gives them specs that are well defined and implementable, and they can, if someone accuses them of just doing their own thing without ignoring the community, they can say, no, this was a zip, this was the set of polls that supported that zip, and so on. So it gives them legitimacy in what they implemented in full nodes, and then the actual consensus just follows what the full nodes do, in the sense that so if you have two full node implementations, then it will be the sort of majority chain for mining that determines which one is followed. But in the ideal case where they're trying to implement the same thing, that would only matter in the case where you have a consensus vote. Okay, does that answer the question?
Gotcha was next, I believe.
Yeah, so the role of the zip editors is to determine whether a proposed zip or change to the protocol is well specified, and whether issues have been highlighted, whether it's been reviewed properly for security and whatnot. The process of deciding what goes into the protocol is entirely separate. And as of right now, that requires agreement between ECC and the Zcash Foundation, notwithstanding anything that ECC have announced. But as of right now, that requires that ECC and ZF agree what goes into what changes should be made to the protocol, and both those organizations are committed to following the clear consensus of the Zcash community. So this process that's going on at the moment of polling and whatnot is part of that process on both sides of each organization, assessing what the consensus of the Zcash community is.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question about how ECC's withdrawal from the trademark agreement affects that. So in this particular upgrade, I think it's pretty uncontroversial. It will basically follow the outcome of the runoff poll, and so it almost doesn't matter what process is being followed because the outcome will be the same. But still, it's interesting to ask what the effect of ECC's withdrawal is formally, and what effect that will actually have in future upgrades. And I can't answer that question. Is Josh on the call? I don't think Josh is on the call.
I don't think so. Vivek also has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to jump in if we don't have an answer to that question.
So I think I think what Dodger said was sort of answered it. So what question I had was that this means that in the post this process, there will be probably some further polls and stuff like discussing the design of the lockbox in the next over the next 1 year, or obviously much less than that, to design the lockbox. Okay.
I mean, there's also the question. So assuming that the next network upgrade is NU7 and that it contains the ZSA changes, there could potentially be some controversy about that between the ECC and ZF. I don't anticipate any, but let's, for the sake of argument, say that there is, and there's some disagreement about what two versions of the spec that should be followed. How is that resolved?
Emma, I think that since the plan is for Zcash D not to upgrade at NU7 and simply to shut down, I don't think that this is really going to be something that
it's
to worry about.
It's a hypothetical that if Zcash D had continued as an active consensus node, we would have needed to talk about. But as it happens,
and again, as I said before, it comes back to, and as I said before, it comes back to what do people actually run? That's the end deciding factor. Is if a network upgrade, we can do all this bloviating and put together something and be happy it's secure and things, but if people don't run it, it doesn't activate.
Yeah, ultimately the miners have a veto if they choose not to upgrade.
Well, miners to some extent, the users definitely.
Thanks for the clarifications. It's an interesting process.
We will need to figure out what happens, how the trademark is handled after this change. We don't need to do that now.
Okay, should we move on from menu 6 and do the updates? Maybe if there's any more topics for discussion on this, there's always a slot at the end. Okay, let's move on with the Zebra update then. I think that's Alfredo today.
Yeah, that's me. Thank you, Billy. So since the last Zebra release, that was 1.8.0, which was around 2 weeks ago, in the Zebra team, we improved some poll conflicts in our testing framework that make our test pass more easily in the CI, which save us some time when making changes. We merged all the code for the scanner that we moved into a new binary. We had that code already, but was blocked by the release. And after we did the release, we merged all that. We moved and adapted all the tests needed. We upgraded the documentation to use a scanner in the new way. We finalized with all that for now. We added a tonic server in the Zebra RPC crate, which is part of the indexer work that we got started. Then after that, we shifted our attention to NU6 and we leave all that work of Zcash deprecation on hold for now. So we added a new NU6 variant to Zebra without any activation height, just the types and the needed changes to make stuff work. In the middle of that, we had an issue in LikeWalletD with the get blockchain info RPC method that we fixed. We also spent some time upgrading Zebra to use the new stable version of Hyper, which is a dependency we use in our code base that changed it to a major version, and that was needed some some time-consuming changes in our side to make the work.
I didn't catch the name of that dependency.
How was that, sorry?
I didn't catch the name of that dependency.
Hyper.
Oh, Hyper.
Yeah. So we are actually we use Hyper in kind of two places in our code base, and we are thinking of stop using it in one of them and probably in the other one. So maybe at some point it's not a dependency for us anymore. So yeah, we spent some time with that. I think it was last week. Well, then back to NU6, we have the PR open to a logbook functionality that we were talking about, which is pending SIP's resolution, and we are synchronizing with Zcash to produce the same output. And finally, yesterday we merged configurable testnet funding stream, which is a feature that would allow to test NU6 functionality with the Zebra reckless mode. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Alfredo. Any questions for Alfredo or for the Zebra team? Darema, you still have your hand up, but I think that's from before. Yeah, okay. Shall we move on with the ECC updates? Okay. So anyone from ECC to speak about Zcash, Sashi, and the water test game?
We've been primarily working on the ZIP 320 changes. We got those merged and in the process of testing them. There's a couple of bugs that we're dealing with that are exposed by the ZIP 320 logic, but not the ZIP 320 logic itself. It's things in elsewhere in parts of the stack that we are currently working through with the aim to still be able to do SDK like releases, including ZIP 320 sometime next week. But we will, obviously depending on figuring out these bugs or figuring out what we can do with them. There's a couple of other bugs related to the mobile SDKs that we're also working on around detection of purely transparent transactions that we're working through. What else?
For Zcash, I had a PR to reduce the block action limit, unpaid action limit to 0, and that got stale because of the changes to actually, I think it was failing tests because I hadn't updated the tests. A lot of them rely on the fact that
they were using
aren't
the tests were using old fee calculations.
Yeah, exactly. So I need to figure that out, and then we can release 5.10.
Yep. And then obviously there's the NU6 stuff that was discussed in the previous section. And then, yeah, the Zcash side then is going to target those pieces. The Rust changes. There's another PR that we working on, and I'm trying to remember if it's been merged or not, but support from Andrew Arnott for importing accounts into the Rust code base, into the Rust wallet code bases from either arbitrary account numbers, not just sequential, and importing UFVKs to enable like watch only imports. So I've been working through the process of getting that in. I think that's most of everything that is relevant here, I think.
Were we planning to include the testnet and these exchanges with 5.10?
Well, that entirely depends on timing there. It makes the most sense because we're aiming for the next Zcash release to be in the next couple of weeks. So that will very likely just be 5.10, and we'll do them together. If for whatever reason there end up being delays in the NU6 code, then maybe we put out a release just prior to it with other changes that need to get out. But I don't anticipate that there will be significant. I don't anticipate that the delays there will be significant enough to justify doing two Zcash releases.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions?
The other thing I forgot to mention is that we got the currency conversion lookup via Tor merged into the Rust crates. So that will also be in the next release of the Rust crates using Arty as the backend. Looks like on desktop it takes like 5 to 10 seconds the first time you use it, and then a couple of seconds afterwards. On mobile, I think it's taken it up to like 20 seconds sometimes, because obviously you have to bootstrap the Tor node and whatnot. But when that work can be cached, and so normally it's more like 5 seconds or so to do the queries and things. So the way that it's being presented in the mobile SDKs is that there's a value you can subscribe to that has the ZEC USD exchange rate, and then there's an API you can call to refresh it. And so the intention would be that you won't do the refreshing very often. You won't need to, but the wallets can obviously decide how they want to do that. But that's now been merged into the Rust code, so that will be in the next release of the Rust crates and carried through to the mobile SDKs.
Nice. Any questions for the ECC team? Alfredo.
Yeah, so Shaq, do you plan to do more in that regard, like sending transactions through Tor or something like that?
That is entirely my intention. It's just a lot more work. So the way that this is set up is that we're using Hyper and request and things to do HTTP requests, but it's hooked up to a custom TCP layer that redirects itself. That is hooked up to direct itself through Arty. All of this is doable with Tonic as well, but the Tonic APIs do not expose nearly as good interfaces to build this with as Hyper does. So there's a lot more infrastructure that I need to build to get this to work. Basically copying a bunch of the internals of the gRPC setup logic from inside Tonic and rewriting it to instead go over Tor. So yes, it's entirely doable. It's just going to take some time, and so I'll just be doing it on the side. But the bootstrapping stuff that Tor does for currency conversion will also be directly usable for these kinds of requests. And then once that's in place, that will enable doing gRPC connections to LightWallet through Tor exit nodes. We were not thinking about onion services yet, because Arty's support for onion services itself is still experimental, but that would enable you to do queries, which, due to all the added latency, you wouldn't want you very likely wouldn't want to do your regular like block downloads and block scanning over there, but for transaction sending or for specific like address UTXO lookups potentially or address balance lookups, it would be useful to have.
And so just for people who aren't familiar with the crate names, Tonic is gRPC over HTTP2 implementation, and Hyper is just a HTTP library.
Yeah, so it can do HTTP 1 or 2, and I think Tonic uses Hyper under the hood.
Right.
It just
On the
doesn't
different
expect you
layers.
to do weird stuff like this, so it doesn't expose any of the APIs to let you do it.
Yep.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this? Shall we move on to Zcash deprecation updates? I don't think there's much from the foundation side, but if anyone has anything that we haven't said already, please go ahead. Jason.
I get.
Oh, go ahead.
So I guess I can announce that we're getting Greg Pfeil, who has previously worked for ECC, will be working as a contractor on Zcash deprecation, and in particular on extending the completing the library for Zcash for Bitcoin script that Shah started.
Yeah, and other than that, the main work we've been doing in this regard is getting the transparent logic. So those bugs I referred to before that Zip320 is exposing are basically all to do with transparent handling. So the bug fixing we're doing here is also directly relevant to Zcash deprecation.
Yeah, so there's a forum thread that has the Zcash deprecation roadmap, and in that same thread, Han lists like the APIs and the features that he's been relying on in Zcash. And I know that ECC ZF are doing some work on this, and then Kedit's also doing some work. The Zingo Labs team has expressed an interest in helping out as well. So I'm curious if there's like a roadmap or a checklist that shows who's doing what and where Zingo Labs can help out, and then ZCG can allocate resources to accelerate the deprecation.
That's a very good question. We should probably meet and have a more focused meeting about that, or discuss it asynchronously on Discord.
Yeah, if people are interested in helping to deprecate Zcash, there's a meeting that we currently are using for that purpose. Yeah, we can obviously, if there's additional people interested, then we can look at finding a better time to schedule for everyone there. But basically, just anyone who is actively interested in contributing to that should let us know so we can schedule like essentially just a regular check-in meeting where we're doing that synchronization and keeping up on what is necessary to do. We also have the DAG that shows sort of the what our current belief is on things that need to be done, and obviously as we make progress through it, we expand things as we learn and add more things to the graph. There are things missing from this graph right now because I keep needing to and keep not having time to review Comrado's PR to fix the rendering for this so that it will pull in the Zebra repo issues again, because there's obviously a bunch of changes that need to happen to Zebra and various things in that realm, adding things that is currently lacking to on that side. So those issues currently aren't shown in the DAG, but I will once again try and push that higher up my stack to review that PR. And similarly, anyone else in the ecosystem who any other repos that become relevant should also end up in this graph. But yeah, to the point of like Han giving things that they're relying on, that's all relevant to things like issue 1395 in terms of what APIs are being that the index needs to provide. There's another issue around there for enumerating the APIs that that ZcashD currently has that are absolutely necessary. So this is specifically 1364. No, that's not that one. It's we have 13. I'm just looking for the issue here.
1350, I think.
No, 1350 is the issue there. LibreZcash, yeah. Determining what subset of Zcash wallet functionality is required by users in a replacement wallet, independent of how it's accessed. And I did back in April copy over the list of capabilities that Han had listed on the forum in that thread. So they are tracked there. But so I'll just point this issue here as well. Basically, if there's anyone else who's listening to this call who goes, oh, I use the Zcash wallet in this way that maybe you haven't thought of, go and talk on that thread.
Should we use that thread to have? Should we use that thread to have people reach out to express their interest, or would you rather Discord?
Okay, so the community thread is probably a good place to have that general kind of discussion. Yes, the issue I just posted is specific to the question of if you are using Zcash in a particular way. So that's separate from the from that piece there. And then as far as like R&D related stuff, yeah, the Zcash channel in the Zcash R&D Discord is the perfect place to talk about Zcash deprecation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We also, on the Zebra side, apart from once our issues go into the DAG, we do have a couple of milestones or tracking issues that track the different areas. So for example, we've been looking at implementing the different pieces for the new architecture for replacement built-in wallet that is in Zcash. And then there's also things like what do we need to support block explorers, which we're doing a little bit of work on before we switch to NU6. And also recently, we've also been thinking about what do hardware wallets need from how do they use Zcash, and is there any functionality that we need to implement in Zebra to support that use case? I can pop in the links for the Zebra milestones and tracking issues on the chat as well, if anyone is interested. And the call that we currently have with the ECC for Zcash deprecation is at the same time slot as this Arborist call. So if anyone else is interested in joining, ping me and I'll get them added to. It's a Google Meet talk, but maybe we can change the platform if
it's on the opposite weeks as the Arborist call.
Yeah, essentially. Every week, but this one when the Arborist call clashes.
All right.
Any other questions on Zcash deprecation? Oops, actually, I forgot to move that on. But yes, please reach out if you want to help out. I think from the Zebra side, what we're more interested in is what use cases are we currently not meeting, and we really need different subsets of the community to talk to us and tell us, hey, Zebra doesn't work for us for these reasons, and then we can look at getting them added and trying to implement.
At some point, it was discussed that the main functionality is the exchanges being able to use, right? Is this like now at 100% coverage, or where does it hover? Nowhere near.
Well, that's my impression, because Zebra doesn't have a wallet at all, never mind a transfer wallet.
Yeah, a large part of the work being done here is to build the wallet infrastructure that then can be used in conjunction with Zcash with ZebraD to replace the Zcash wallet.
Got it.
I can't remember if I said Zcash and meant Zebra.
Is that Jason? That's the type of work that Zingo Labs was envisioning.
I believe so. I think they're on the call. They're the other Jason McGee's, so maybe they can.
Hey, so this is Arlo from Zingo Labs. So was helping a little bit earlier in the year with.
Why are you impersonating Jason McGee? What's going on?
Because I sent him my link. I didn't realize that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Zoom operates on bearer tokens.
That's funny.
It operates poorly on those tokens.
But yeah, the work we've been looking at mostly in terms of has been looking more at light wallet dedeprecation recently rather than Zcash dedeprecation. So it's doing a little bit of work helping with implementing reg tests in ZebraD earlier in the year. And from talks there, it sounded like the best route forward for us was to focus on providing a Rust implemented alternative to light wallet D.
Which is separately a very good thing to have.
Yeah, so we're also getting some funding from NIM, and we're going to be implementing a NIM server in this light wallet D implementation as well.
Oh, nice.
So it's not going to be all of the, well, first of all, we're not planning to implement all of the light wallet RPCs over NIM, just a subset that will allow NIM shielded send and NIM shielded sync for Zcash wallets.
Yeah.
There is a once reg test mode is fully supported in ZebraD, which might be the case already, we can drop ZebraD into our smoke tests, our end-to-end tests from client to node, and get insight into which RPCs our light client needs that ZebraD doesn't support yet. So as soon as reg test mode is ready, we can flip it into our test framework and provide a bunch of insight into what a light client besides Hans requires for ZebraD to fully support light client infrastructure. So that's work we would be doing towards Zcash deprecation.
I'm sorry, the light client infrastructure is the critical path for exchanges to be able to work, or is it separate things?
So the code that is currently used for light clients, even if we extend it to not make that light client assumption, that it's going to be a large overlap in the code. So it's.
I'm sorry, the muddied voice now didn't pass through. Go ahead.
So even though the current code is focused on light clients, a large proportion of it is going to be needed, even without making the light client assumption. So let's say if you run a light client on the same node as your Zcash node, and so you have the same, they're within a trust boundary, then that provides most of what you need for.
But is the target Zcash dedeprecation or light wallet dedeprecation? Like,
to give
those independent.
We shouldn't rabbit hole on this particular topic.
Sorry, I don't want to rabbit hole. I just wanted to understand, like, what's the critical
to give a very brief answer. The work that Light Wallet D does, like in an architecture where we have a Zcash D wallet replacement, the work Light Wallet D does has partial overlap with some of the work that Zcash D was doing. The general approach that we've sort of sketched out, and there's another issue that's visible in the DAG, is to have sort of, you've got the main consensus node, you then have some sort of indexer service which is not doing the core consensus protocol work. Yep. So if you're just being a consensus node, you do all you need is that. But then like the stuff that like blockchains use, like what Light Wallet D does and so on, all that work is sort of like starts to fall in under the realm of indexers. So work being done, for instance, to provide Rust code to replacing Light Wallet D, it won't all be directly usable, but there'll be parts of that will also be usable for the sort of indexer purpose within, or which in current Light Wallet D, the Go code is talking to Zcash D code that does that indexing for it. It's entirely relying on that. But in the general architecture going forward, you'll have the sort of indexer service, which may in some deployments still be part of the same ZebraD node, or it might be a separate process, or you'll have options in terms of what you wish to do there. But logically, you'll have sort of an indexer service that is pulling data from the core consensus node and turning it into the form that the wallet needs. And then you have the wallet sort of half of it, which currently in the light clients is all merged together as well, where you just have the core wallet that's doing the wallet logic for what you need, and then you have the scanning logic, which is currently just done by everything being sent down in compact block form and getting very minimal guarantees of what you get. And those can be split out as well into what we sort of roughly called a scanner service and then the wallet service. So right now the split is roughly that the scanner and the wallet sort of correspond to what we currently think of as a light client, and the indexer is sort of split between what we currently think of as light wallet D and what we currently think of as Zcash D. And the intention is that for at least for an exchange replacement version, you would instead have an architecture where everything except the wallet is running in one sort of like container or process or whatever. So the core consensus node, the indexer, and the scanner are all running sort of together and can be on that piece there. And then the wallet code is the separable piece. Or it might be in a particular deployment that they're okay with running the scanner with them as well, but the scanner piece is less relevant for purely transparent exchange because they don't have the scanning load. So the scanner will probably just be, again, as I said, just hooked into whichever one makes most sense for them.
Yeah, so the current light wallet, the light client protocol has a bunch of limitations, especially around transparent support. It was basically designed only to do shielded post-sapling and only to support light client wallets. So, and we're running into those problems even when we're trying to include some transparent functionality in light wallets. And so this new architecture will be beneficial both for the exchange case or the full node replacement case and for light wallets.
I'll let Arya chime in because he's had his hand up for a while now, and then I think it's Dodger.
I just want to say that if anyone wants to use regtest in Zebra, it is ready with the notable missing RPC methods of invalidate block and reconsider block. And responding to Strad, I still feel indexer is the wrong word here because Zebra does all the indexing that Zcash does already. It's just providing that in a different interface. It's more of a caching layer.
It is kind of a caching layer, yeah. I guess the point I was making is that there's a bunch of logic there that you need when you're using a consensus node in the context of like a block explorer or a wallet backing case or a light wallet backing case, which if you're just running consensus nodes and checking consensus, or even just operating in like a mining case, you don't need any of that. So that's really sort of, maybe index is the wrong word for it, but like the index language just literally comes from the fact that the code in Zcash that does this was originally written for a block explorer. And so it was indexing the chain to do things like, building indexes, lookup indexes between an address and the transactions that get used in, which is completely, you don't need those indices for a full node, but you do need them if you're doing a block explorer or something that needs rapid lookup.
I mean, the indexing terminology makes sense to me. Can you be more specific, Arya, about why you don't think that's the right terminology?
I would think that an indexer builds the indices and adds them to a database, whereas in this case, Zebra already has all that information and it's just kind of replicating it and distributing it.
Well, in that case, then ZebraD is acting already as a partial indexer. So it's essentially partially doing what Zcash is also already doing. But I don't think that invalidates the architectural split.
No, the architecture still looks good to me.
Okay, cool. And I think there would be some
we are rabbit holing again.
Yes,
there would be some
I was just going to say that.
There would be some benefits in doing it in different processes, but yeah, let's not go down that.
Dodger?
To address Jonathan's question directly, replacing light wallet D is not on the critical path for deprecating Zcash D. As of today, as far as I'm aware, all Zcash light clients rely on Zebra at the back end. I'm not aware of any light wallet D servers that run against Zcash D. They all rely on Zebra D. So Zebra already has the capability.
I think that's false.
Okay.
I think that is false. I believe ZecRox does both. They use
Zecrox has a Zcashd instance running in case there's a problem with Zebra, but all of the production instances are using Zebra.
My understanding was that it was a pool that was redirected to in various for various backends. That might have changed in the last few weeks, but my understanding, at least,
I checked this within the last few weeks.
Okay, so it's
in any case, Zebra is capable already of acting as
So just to reiterate, deprecating Light Wallet D is not on the critical path for deprecating Zcashd. That's number one. And the second thing, I think that we've just spent a lot of time discussing something that is more about things that would be good or things that would be nice to have rather than things that are necessary for Zcashd deprecation. And I think it's important that we separate out what's necessary, what's on the critical path, and things that are a good idea in the abstract but aren't actually necessary for Zcashd deprecation.
My question was around the exchanges, but if the users with the consumer wallets require a light client, then I'm not making this is more important than that question. I was just asking specifically for the exchanges where it stood, but I'm not saying that light clients are less or more or anything like this. Sorry, there.
Yes, as far as we know, exchanges rely on the built-in wallet in Zcashd, and that's what's on the critical path for replacements in order to be able to deprecate Zcashd, so that exchanges and other heavy users like mining pools who do distribution of rewards can switch from Zcashd to something else.
Darren, and
so it may turn out that to satisfy that use case involves building things that take the place in the architecture diagram of what is currently done by Light Wallet D. So it's not quite the case that it's more complicated than saying that replacing Light Wallet D is not on the critical path.
We have about 30 minutes left and a bunch of other items in the agenda. Can we park this for now, get to the agenda, and if there's any time left over at the end, continue discussing Zcash deprecation? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're never going to get to the end of the agenda at this rate. So I'm going to move on to the research and implementation updates, and we have Zcash shielded assets. I don't know if Vivek or John want to talk about that today.
Yeah, I think I'll give the ZSA updates today. So yeah, this is like since the last Arborist call, I think we've been working on a bunch of things. One of the things is the ZSA circuit. I think we mentioned last time that we were close to submitting a PR, PR for Halo 2. We'd split the work into a initial groundwork PR that sort of like gets all the interfaces in, but doesn't make any changes to the actual stuff. And followed by like something that does the actual changes to Halo 2 to generalize for Zcash shielded assets. So we submitted the PR for that initial groundwork change recently, and we also have, I think, the next PR with the actual changes sort of ready. We spoke to ECC just a couple of days back, and we discussed that it's probably best to split it into, I think there's 3 parts that we are changing. And so we'll split it into 3 different PRs so that it's independent pieces that can be reviewed separately. So that's what.
Yeah, I think that the approach that you've already taken with the predecessor PRs will really help facilitate review, because huge PRs are so difficult to review, especially when they're changing consensus code. Yeah, it really helps a lot to break them into small pieces.
Yeah, so I think I guess that's what we are splitting the stuff up into the 3 PRs. So that should be coming in the next, in the near future. the other thing is we've continued working on Libra Zcash and Orchard and the Python Zcash test vectors. So I think last month it was that we were in the middle of getting the reference implementation with the test vectors working. So that's done pretty much, and we tested it against the new transaction format in Libra Zcash, and basically it worked on we got that all working. So that's good. That's done. I mean, we have to, I guess, clean up, just do one pass to make sure everything's clean, and then we'll probably be able to submit the PR for that as well. On Libra Zcash, yeah, just Libra Zcash, I think we had moved, we had refactored the code to move to V7 transactions. But we also got confirmation from the zip editors that I think there's no changes in NU6 to the transaction format. So so it'll just be V6 transactions only. So we are just reverting those things back to V6 from V7. So there's that, and probably some other cleanup, and then I think that's Libra Zcash stuff for the moment. On Zebra, I believe, we had this Zcash transaction tool that's there to help with generating Zebra transactions. So we think we are close to merging the PR with the V6 work on that. And I think we've done some consensus changes for NU7 for the Zebra node. Yeah, and I think we're also trying to get a demo out that you can interact with in more better with a node up in the on an EC2 ECS instance or something like that. So that's also stuff that we're working on.
That'd be really helpful.
And yeah, so other thing is the zips. So while I was doing the Python test vectors,
maybe before the zips, just a small thing. This transaction tool is a bit more advanced than transaction tool. This is what we use to do to test the entire ZSA today in our homegrown testnets. And this is probably what we're going to provide as just a spin up a Docker and see that how to use ZSAs and form transactions. That's the transaction tool that does that. So pay attention when you see this in a PR. That's your angle to actually using ZSAs very soon, issuing, transferring them. This is it's a big piece.
So yeah, for the zips, on the zip side, I think while I was doing the test vectors stuff, I noticed that there were some places in the zip where there was some ambiguity, or it was not super well specified. So I've added some stuff to the zips to clarify that stuff, and should be better now. I think there was also a small change to the transaction format in the zip where we had the Orchard transactions, then the binding signature, and then the burn transactions. And so I moved the burn transactions above because since the binding signature also binds the burn stuff, it sort of makes sense to have the burn stuff above and the binding signature at the end. So
I agree, that makes sense.
Yeah, so some things like that. Then I think on the zip side, there were some issues that were there, that have the ZSA tag. So I've started going through those. Some basic ones I've made some fixes that we'll basically merge those things into our main upstream PR and put those in together. But that's what I'll be trying to resolve over the next bit for the zips. Yeah, on the question of the zips, I think there's also we have a zip for the fee changes for the ZSAs, and we have the asset swap zip. Both there's not been much activity of late, and we were hoping to just raise the question to see if there's any feedback or any data.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the asset swap zips. So my understanding is that involved a refactoring of the transaction format to use action groups.
Yes.
Does it make sense to include that in MU7? So I don't want to suggest anything that will end up sort of blocking deployment of the main CSA functionality. I'm just thinking, how difficult would it be to include that refactoring in the?
And this is work that's done I think by December, right, Vivek?
Yeah, so that's I think part of what we wanted to discuss later about like we are planning to like have work on the implementation of asset swaps done ideally by like the end of December. So yeah, we'll get to, I guess. Yeah, basically I just wanted to raise that there are these drafts of the asset swap zip and the fees. And like yeah, any comments, anything to like so that we can finalize that and like get those things also implemented soon. That would be a good thing. Yeah, and like we'll discuss more about the asset swaps implementation and the grant, I guess maybe in a bit later if there's
maybe we can discuss it now. It's a good time to talk about it.
So before we go off the question of the transaction formats, I guess we don't need to make that decision now. We can get feedback on the action group design and the asset swap design, and then make a decision about whether it's a single transaction change or ends up being two transaction changes.
That's basically our proposal. So what if I make a long thread short, I'm not going to mention anything about past canceled grants and the emotional toll that it takes to go through those forum threads. We're suggesting to take the CADI team and the resources that we dedicate to this effort and put them behind two features. One is transaction acceptance or refusal in the form of a zip that we're now we've worked on it quite a lot, but we're going to be formalizing it and proposing it. I see there you're nodding. You've heard about this already. And
I was going to ask about it, but I'll let you finish first.
Yeah, the second thing is have a concrete implementation of asset swap now that the zips have been discussed a little bit, and we believe that from the concrete implementation we'll have also concrete feedback that will allow us to do any revisions. And this work is basically proposed to be now and ready by December, early December, after already iterations and work with the community. So hopefully we could, I don't know when NU7 is targeted, but we could already have a little bit of time with these features being concretely implemented to decide if this makes it or not. This is the very short version of me discussing the grant proposal that we are now proposing through Zcash community grant. The process of discussing features with the Zcash community grant and trying to figure out what is the consensus in the community is not an easy one. But if anyone has a way to interact with us to make our proposals more aligned with all of the community, we're takers. That's all I'll say for now. There's a lot more that can be said on over beers and longer period of time.
I'd just like to say that Kedit and the Kedit staff have taken this process with a great deal of grace and understanding. I know it must be hugely stressful to have a grant of that magnitude cancelled. And yeah, we disagree on the proposal that caused it to be cancelled, but we don't disagree that Kedit has done amazing work on ZSAs, and these additional features about asset swaps and asset acceptance are very useful functionality. And I don't think raise similar problems to the ones that caused those disagreements. So about the asset acceptance, can you give basically a rough idea of how it works?
Yeah, the main thing there is we want to have asset acceptance while retaining privacy and unlinkability. And the idea is, so we have two kind of use cases that we have in mind. One is you're in a restaurant and your friend is paying for you, and you're like politely saying, no, I'll take this one. So you refuse the payment. The other that's more maybe crucial is an exchange is providing an address to receive funds, and they say this asset is but we don't want to deal with this asset, so we don't accept those being funded to us. And the main way that it's implemented is the sender sends in a way their intent to send the asset in a off-chain way, and then the recipient can use the swap mechanism to have their side of the acceptance be bundled together and then posted on chain.
Oh,
and
so it's basically built on top of swaps. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And the idea is that you would prove as the recipient that you're the correct recipient to the transaction that's sent, and you prove this in zero knowledge so that you don't have linkability issues. All of these are proposed and will be discussed in a zip, so we can go back and forth. I don't want to take too much time, but that's the rough idea. And the asset swap part is actually going through the transaction format and starting to implement this on our branches of ZSA and seeing how we can catch this up to NU6, NU7, and whatever NUs we have to catch it to. That's all for myself.
I have a third use case, which is just a private user on an exchange who has worked out the tax implications of a particular set of assets, and they want to sort of limit the complexity of their tax affairs to just use those assets, because it can get very complicated. So, I am such a user.
I'm going to jump in because we have less than 15 minutes left. I know some people have their hands up. If the questions are very specifically targeted towards the current implementation, current research and implementation of Zcash Arborist assets, then please keep your hand up. But otherwise, I would like to move on to the
I have
next.
a yes or no question. Yes, no question.
Okay, go on then, Paco.
Yes. I haven't been 100% up to speed with the this asset acceptance feature, but is there going to be a way to, although we don't with Shield that is easier to be not to be spam, but there's a lot of like token spam in chains like Ethereum where every wallet gets like
the answer is
tokens.
Yes. That is a motivation.
Can you do an okay, so you can do like an allowed list of tokens you will you want to, or you will be trading, and you will be able to not get.
We don't have an allow. We didn't design an allow list in this zip, but the understanding that you hold the ability to say, I want this token, yes or no. So basically, you allow whatever token you want.
Yes.
But this
I
this
feel
part
that
of the
yeah, I feel
Go
that
ahead.
like means while it's not there as a list as such, I think that is something that can easily be added on top at the wallet level, where you have these individual things, and then you can have a place where the wallet can basically you can have a list at the wallet level, and then the wallet should be able to block it
Yeah,
on
excellent.
so for the user
Excellent.
it's sort of like it should be like a list.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that it was basically acceptance or refusal on a per transaction or per payment level, which is actually more flexible than a token or allow list, but you can obviously implement the latter in terms of the former.
Okay. There's 2 more hands up. Again, I will ask whether they're really very focused on yes or no answers to Zcash shielded assets, or whether they're going to get us down another rabbit hole. And if that's the case, I think let's move on to Frost. We may have some more time for discussion in the end, but otherwise, let's move on. So we can have time for the Frost update. Okay, sorry to cut people off, but I think we should try and finish on time. Actually, and we have the set aside Zcash Sustainability Fund first. Do we have anyone to speak to that today?
Yeah, I guess I can give an update. Yeah, so I've been lately working on basically integration testing. The ZSF was doing that on Zebra's rec test, so I had some issues running it initially with Light Wallet D, but with Arya's help, I got it to run. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'll hope to start pushing some code soon. I have some parts of the code that I don't think will change that much, so yeah, hopefully there will be something to review maybe next week.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for Thomas?
I have one question as it relates to the Zcash Sustainability Fund. So Chris earlier in the call mentioned, he said if Zcash D shuts down, is going to shut down at NU7, right? So if the Sustainability Fund wants to be included in NU7, does that mean that we do not need to do the implementation for NU7? And to sort of ask this question differently, for example, if ZSAs are ready for NU7 and Zcash D deprecation is not, will Zcash D be delayed to NU8, or are ZSAs also contingent on Zcash D deprecation?
The specific constraint here is that Zcash D is not going to include any significant, major consensus changes from the so that's the constraint there. So if Zcash D deprecation is delayed, that does delay ZSAs, and ZSF possibly depends on how complex the implementation gets and whether it and how much is available to do it. ZSAs is very much complex enough that it's the time and energy that would be spent getting into Zcash D is better spent deprecating Zcash D.
Yes, I agree.
So as far as a sequencing problem, again, the network upgrade numbers should just be considered guidelines in a sense. Targeting a given upgrade is more that's if we can target that one, great. But if, for example, again, just as a hypothetical, if Zcash D deprecation took an extra 2 years, I'm giving a nonsensical number which hopefully nonsensical number for as a hypothetical, then ZSAs would be delayed to that point there, but other things that are of the order of the stuff we're doing in U6 could potentially still go out in between. Now, ideally, Zcash D happens as quickly as possible, which is what we're working towards, and then ZSAs can get out. And so then as far as ZSF goes, it's just a question of complexity within a given network upgrade as to how much change to the consensus protocol we can tolerate at any one time. in terms of the review and security auditing and whatever loads. So for each change to the consensus rules, if the change is well tested and well contained and well specified, that's going to make it easier to get in at a given network upgrade. Doesn't necessarily mean it is easy to get in a network upgrade, depending on how much other sequencing stuff's going on.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the final research and implementation update on Frost. I think that's Tomado today.
Yeah. So we merged the refresh shares functionality for the trusted dealer key generation, and we're working on that for distributed key generation. The changing architecture that I mentioned last call about moving the aggregator role back to the coordinator is done, is under review, and this will hopefully make further work easier. And I'm currently working on updating our signing tool. So our demo, our Frost demo with Zcash uses a signing tool which uses Y-Wallet code, which takes a Y-Wallet transaction plan and signs it with Frost. So I'm updating it because it uses old versions of the DCC crates, and also had a bunch of local changes that were never contributed upstream. So I'm going over that, updating the crates to pinpoint exactly what API changes are required, something that Paku is also kind of doing. So I was glad to see that we're on the same page. We need basically the same things. So yeah, I'm working on that, and at some point I will discuss with ECC these API changes and how is the best way to do them. But it's still ongoing work. Yeah, and that's it. Oh, and the 200 stable release really, like I mentioned last time, our last release was the 200 RC0. We're waiting for feedback on the API changes. We didn't get any, so I'm assuming everyone is happy with the API changes. And we'll make, I don't know exactly when, but soon, the final 200 release of the regular fast crates.
Thank you, Tomado. Doctor?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention as well that the zip, the Frost for Zcash, as I call it, zip, needs also to be finalized and turn the status change, the final status, whatever the.
Yeah. So
I haven't had time to review that.
Yeah. Well, on that point, we did. We've been through that zip. Comrado did some updates to the draft. Chris and I looked over it, and so that's now been merged. So the current status of the draft is up on the Zip's website. I've got a PR open with the main piece that hadn't yet been addressed from the initial review, which is dealing with how keygen works, which also ties into the PR that Paku has open on the Orchard repo. So there's a PR up on the Zips repo which is where we should be figuring out how we'll actually use Frost in the Zcash key trees and Zcash keys. And once we figured out that out, then I think it's mainly just editorial work remaining.
Yep.
That's 883 on Zcash 6.
Hey, thank you, Tomado. Trading finality, any updates on that? I guess that's Diana.
No. No updates.
No updates. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, finally, open announcements. Paku.
Yes, I wanted to ask a question regarding trailing finality. Do we know if there are other teams that might be interested in working on this? Like I've been I'm planning on doing kind of a free-to-see blog about what's the experience of of using Zcash on different exchanges and services and or wallets that have exchanges. And I guess that this issue is really important to get adoption. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards like maybe the most important, given that we're seeing like 100. I've seen 100 confirmation requirement from some exchange to actually exchange funds. So imagine how that how it looks like. Like I freaked out, and I'm supposed to be an expert. You know, when you see a website just having a scrolling wheel, and like your money is kind of like in the limbo, like nowhere. So it would be nice to see if like any teams hearing this call want to chip in on this, or maybe I don't know if there's some already that are thinking on working on this for Zcash. Would be super awesome.
Okay, thank you, Papi. Anyone else have any announcements? We have about 2 minutes left. Okay, I'll move on to discussion. Go ahead, Jason. You're first.
So thank you. So going back to Kedit, I have a question about process. So one of the things that came out of this canceled stablecoin grant is that ZCG is going to start attending these Arborist calls. Michael and I are here today. To go back to something Jonathan mentioned earlier, ZCG doesn't need community consensus to approve a grant, but what we need to know is that the engineering community is comfortable with the technical merits of the proposal, that it's implementable, and that there are no unforeseen risks like there were with the stablecoin grant. So I guess the question ultimately is like, what does that process look like? So once they submit their proposal, we can attend these calls, we can flag it, but will you want to review the written proposal, discuss it, and then follow up with us to give us a green light, or how do you expect, like, what do you want to see come out of this change in process?
This is a question to node implementers, right?
Sure.
Yes. So the most important really thing is to recognize how busy node implementers are, but they might not notice things. I think that was part of the problem here.
So from that regard, coming to Arborist calls and mentioning things that might need attention is a good way to do that interaction. Yes.
Yeah. So for example, I had expressed strong reservations about the stablecoin thing, but I didn't know that there was an open grant for the amount of money that was involved. And I didn't know what the schedule was for approving or taking account of third-party comments on that grant. I don't know whether was that clearly communicated, and I just missed it.
The nature of the grant was to do the work of getting comments from everyone and see if there's a cryptographic breakthrough that we can include, so that these features can be as privacy preserving as they can. But this is I'm not replaying a past match. So also,
I think we have a different view of that, but that's not really the point here. The point is, so for grants going forward, what needs to be the process for ZCG communicating with the full node implementers. Yeah, I mean, just having a lower bandwidth sort of stream of proposals to look at.
I have a suggestion there. I actually have a suggestion there.
Go on.
It's much easier to comment on well-formed arguments that state clearly what they're trying to achieve. Like there's a rigorous work to ask from someone that's busy their opinion and not waste their time. And the more you do work beforehand, and you propose something that you already hashed some problems or refusals that could, or you have a better chance of not wasting anyone's time. That's work. And so the best is, and this is what we reached, I think, with ZCG, is to make sure that anything that's worked on has very early feedback on concrete proposals that have very defined what are we discussing and why are we doing this, etc. And it used to be the case that we could take a bet that we work on this before a grant, and then we put some of the work out there, and then the grant continues this towards implementation. Now we're a little bit more on shaky grounds, where we know that some work we will do before the grant might not actually be funded. But the best way to move forward is just to make sure that the work is is correctly chopped, and there's points for engineers to see concrete proposals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't object in principle to the being funding even upfront for very controversial proposals. I think that in this case, lots of people in the community were surprised by.
I'm talking about future ones.
I know, but yeah, but it is relevant in the sense that the amount of funding that is committed for that kind of exploratory work, that there might be objections from the community to, should be capped, I think. But that's my suggestion.
Yeah, no, but that's, again, this is when one day we will show what we worked on for verifiable encryption and the places that this can be relevant for Zcash other than the proposed features. There's really a lot of work that went into this, but this is, again, a grant that was ultimately canceled. The part of that grant was discussing completely other features that we also worked on, which part of them are the asset, transaction acceptance. So we come with something because we worked on it also. But I guess, Jason, the best we can hope is eyeballs that look at concrete, what we desire, and then as a community, and then move on that.
Yeah.
If I can just jump in.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. At the foundation, we have had grants highlighted to us in the past, and we have provided feedback to CCG on grants, and we're happy to keep doing that, provide our expertise, as long as we're, as these are highlighted to us, we're happy to spend some time providing feedback as we have done in the past. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Yeah, the way that I see this process, go ahead. The way that I see this process working is that Jonathan is going to submit his proposal today. At the next Arborist call, we will attend the meeting, and we will give an overview of it. We will have a discussion, and assuming, like, I don't think we shouldn't need a green light per se, but assuming that there are no highlighted risks or no one has any issues that Kedit needs to bring back to the table, then we should be okay, going on with our process, considering community feedback and approving the grant or rejecting it.
At this stage, though, we don't have a lot more to describe to this call than what we described today. The rest is it's formalized in a proposal.
But the issue is that people aren't looking at the proposals, right? That's
No,
still
but
ground is
I
open.
highlighted the big parts just today in the call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Part of the issue was that people were very distracted with other things. And also that there were a lot of things lumped together in the same grant. And I can see part of the motivation for that, and sometimes they depend on the same mechanism, and it may be easier for the grant proposer to lump things together. But in the case where you have features with one or some of which could be very controversial and the others are not, then maybe those should always have been two separate grants.
Arya.
I have a separate question. John, you mentioned deploying ZSAs on a homegrown testnet. Is that testnet public, or are there any plans to deploy ZSAs on a custom testnet before NU7 activation?
Yeah, this is in the coming weeks. It's going to be a sort of node that we run that you can connect to, but you will also have all the means of running that testnet yourself and connecting, from different machines. We needed this for testing, and it's actually part of the previous grant we work on. It's a small remaining piece that we need to deliver, so it's coming up.
Awesome, thank you.
Dodger, and then I think we'll end the call there.
Yeah, I just want to express caution about trying to jam more into the Arborist calls. As you can see, we're already over time with this call, and I agree with Jason that the problem is that people haven't been looking at the grants, haven't been paying attention to them, reviewing them. Maybe it might be worth having a separate call where node implementers or people who feel that they have want to express an opinion on grants that may impact the protocol can attend, and then such grants can be reviewed there. I would just caution against trying to jam more into the Arborist call, given that we're already butting up against and going past the scheduled time.
Can I make a suggestion that I think complements that, and that's just having a dedicated Discord channel that we can tag people, we can paste links to the grant, we can say, please review, and then we can follow up if we don't hear anything back. Because I agree with Dodger, it would probably be cumbersome to discuss open grants during the Arborist call.
I would slightly push back on this, because the reason this call has gone long is that we were discussing both NU6, which is a huge topic on its own, and ZSAs and the grant process. So the actual content of the call was quite substantive in this case, but it could have been split over several calls. I'm just wary of having to attend another meeting, because that is not really solving the problem in this case, which was that I didn't have enough time to review it.
Well, Jason's suggestion is then to have a dedicated Discord channel where people can be alerted to grants that they ought to review.
I mean, there was a ZSA's channel, and the fact that there was a grant was not discussed on that channel, to my knowledge.
All right, well, maybe we start with the Arborist calls, and if we find that that's eating up too much time, then we move it elsewhere. Can we agree on that?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's leave it there. Thank you everyone for attending and for engaging, and next Arborist call will be on the 8th of August at a later time of 21. See you all then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.